Why rich people can still be terrified of losing everything. It's 3:14 in the morning, and a man worth $41 million is lying in bed, wide awake, refreshing his brokerage app like it owes him money, which technically it does. A lot of it. His name doesn't matter. Let's call him Marcus because every finance video needs a Marcus. Marcus sold a software company 8 years ago. He has a house with a wine cellar bigger than most people's apartments. He has a financial advisor, a tax attorney, and a guy whose entire job is to make sure Marcus's boat doesn't get barnacles. And right now, at 3:14 a.m., Marcus is doing math in his head about how many years he has left before the money runs out. $41 million. If you did the responsible thing and just parked that in boring, diversified index funds and never touched it, history says that money would keep growing faster than he could reasonably spend it down. Marcus could spend more money every single year than most households earn in 5, and still statistically die richer than he started. And he is lying there, terrified he's gonna end up broke. Here's the part that should bother you. Marcus isn't an idiot. He built something real. He understands compound growth better than most people who'll ever watch this video. And yet, at 3 a.m., none of that matters because his brain isn't doing spreadsheet math. It's doing cave person math. And cave person math doesn't care about your net worth. It only cares about one question. Am I safe or am I not? By the end of this video, you're going to understand why some of the richest people on the planet genuinely, physically feel poor, why the fear doesn't switch off once the number gets big enough. And this is the part that actually matters for you, why understanding this now at whatever number you're currently at might save you from spending the next 20 years chasing a finish line that was never going to make you feel safe anyway. The brain doesn't do zeros. Let's start with something uncomfortable. Your brain was not built to understand large numbers. It was built to understand threats. For most of human history, losing your resources didn't mean your portfolio dipped 4% in a red week. It meant your tribe's food store got raided or the harvest failed, and now your children might not survive winter. That is the software your brain is still running. You're just running it on an iPhone instead of a cave wall. Psychologists have a name for the specific glitch happening to Marcus at 3 a.m. It's called loss aversion, the finding from behavioral economics that losses tend to weigh more heavily on us than equivalent gains. Losing $100 doesn't just cancel out finding $100, it stings more. Your brain treats loss as a 5-alarm fire and treats gain as a mildly nice Tuesday. Now here's the twist almost nobody talks about. Getting richer doesn't necessarily switch that response off. You'd think it would. You'd think that once you have $40 million, losing $400,000 of it would feel like losing $400 felt back when you were broke. Basically a rounding error. But people often judge gains and losses relative to a reference point, not simply against their total wealth. And that's the whole trap in one sentence. Let that sit for a second, because everything else in this video builds off it. The reference point problem. Imagine two people. Person A has never had more than $3,000 in a bank account in their entire life. Person B built a business, sold it, and at one point had a portfolio worth $8 million. But a market downturn brought it down to $5 million. Person A sitting on $3,000 feels stable. Nothing has changed. That's just where they've always been. Person B, sitting on $5 million, feels like they're losing everything. Not because $5 million is small, it's enormous, but because their brain isn't comparing it to 0. It's comparing it to 8 million, which is the number their nervous system had already accepted as normal. Dropping from 8 to 5 doesn't register as a still extremely wealthy state. It registers as a 37% loss event, and loss events trigger the same threat circuitry that used to warn your ancestors about lions. This is why you'll sometimes see a headline about a founder or a hedge fund manager who was worth 10 figures, losing a huge chunk of it and reportedly spiraling. Sleepless nights, anxiety, the whole picture. While somebody watching the news with $40 in their checking account thinks, "Are you kidding me? You still have hundreds of millions." Both reactions are correct in a weird way. The person with $40 is right that the wealthy person is nowhere near financial danger, and the wealthy person's brain is also technically doing exactly what brains are designed to do, react to the direction of change, not the absolute position. Here's the part nobody wants to hear, and I want to say it plainly because it matters for anyone watching this who's still building to their first real number. This problem does not go away when you get richer, it just moves the goalposts and gets more expensive. The guy stressed about his rent moves the goalposts to, "I'll relax once I have 100,000 saved." Then he hits it, and the goalposts move to 500,000, then a million. There is no number where the goalposts stop moving on their own. You have to consciously stop them. The treadmill with a diamond handle. Let's talk about Lewis for a second, because Lewis, God bless him, has never had more than $1,100 to his name in any point in his adult life, and he still has opinions about this. "So you're telling me," Lewis said when I explained this to him over some genuinely mediocre pizza, "that rich people have found a way to be stressed about money at every single income level. That's actually impressive. That's a skill." And honestly, it is a skill. It's just not the one anybody's trying to build. There's a concept economists and psychologists call hedonic adaptation, the tendency for humans to quickly get used to whatever their circumstances are, good or bad, and reset their sense of normal around it. You get a raise, you feel great for a while, and then your brain quietly files the new salary under baseline and starts looking for the next thing to feel good about. The dangerous twist with money specifically is that hedonic adaptation doesn't just apply to how good you feel about what you have. It applies to what you consider minimum acceptable safety. Marcus at 3 a.m. isn't comparing his $41 million to what an average person has. He's comparing it to the lifestyle, the obligations, and the identity he's built around $41 million. The house, the private school tuition for the kids, the standard he set for himself in his social circle. Which brings us to the part that isn't really about money at all.
What you're actually afraid of. Here's the uncomfortable question. When a wealthy person lies awake terrified of losing their money, are they actually afraid of running out of cash? Or are they afraid of something underneath that? Losing status, losing identity, losing the version of themselves that everyone, including them, has come to believe is who they are. For a lot of self-made wealthy people, the money isn't just money. It's proof. Proof that the years of sacrifice meant something. Proof that they're not the broke version of themselves anymore. When your entire sense of who I am gets fused to a number on a screen, then a drop in that number doesn't feel like a financial event. It feels like an identity crisis wearing a financial costume. This is different, by the way, from the fear that people who inherit wealth sometimes describe. That fear tends to sound more like, "I didn't earn this, so I don't fully trust I can protect it or replace it." Same anxiety, different engine underneath it. One is, I might lose the proof of my worth. The other is, I might lose something I never fully believed was mine to begin with. Both versions share a common root though, and it's this. The money became a stand-in for something psychological, and psychological problems don't get solved by financial solutions. You cannot spreadsheet your way out of an identity crisis. Marcus could hire the best wealth manager on the planet, get a beautifully diversified, tax-optimized, bulletproof portfolio, and still lie awake at 3 a.m. because the portfolio was never the actual thing keeping him up. It was the story he'd built on top of the portfolio. The scarcity brain never got the memo. Quick detour because this explains something that confuses a lot of people. Why might this hit some self-made wealthy people particularly hard? There's research in behavioral science on something often called a scarcity mindset. When resources feel tight, money-related concerns can consume attention and shape how people make decisions. And for someone who spent years genuinely struggling, it's plausible that the habits and fears built during those years don't simply disappear the moment the bank balance changes. If you spent your 20s counting change to make rent, that experience doesn't necessarily exit your nervous system on schedule just because you're now worth 8 figures. So it's plausible that somebody like Marcus isn't just fighting today's balance sheet. Maybe some part of him is still fighting a 25-year-old memory of being genuinely uncomfortably broke. And the honest twist is, some part of that fear actually served him well. It's plausibly part of why he built the company in the first place. The same wiring that keeps him up at 3 a.m. is the wiring that made him paranoid enough, hungry enough, obsessive enough to succeed. Which is almost funny in a bleak way. The fear didn't stop once it stopped being useful. It just kept billing him for its services long after the job was done. The funniest, most expensive math error in the world. Let's make this concrete because I think the abstract version lets people off the hook too easily. Say you're someone watching this with, I don't know, $4,000 in savings. It's genuinely reasonable for you to feel anxious about money. You have real structural risk. A surprise car repair or a medical bill could actually put you in trouble. That anxiety is doing its job. It's protective. Now zoom forward. Say you hit $100,000 saved, then $500,000, then $2 million. At every single one of those stops, if you haven't done any internal work, the anxiety doesn't proportionately shrink the way you'd expect. It just recalibrates to the new number and finds new things to worry about. At $2 million, people invent entirely new categories of financial fear that didn't exist at $4,000. Fear of a lawsuit, fear of inflation eating real returns, fear of the kids becoming entitled, fear of not knowing who your real friends are anymore. Lewis's take on this when I explained it was, and I quote, "So basically being rich doesn't fix the fear, it just gives the fear a better apartment." Which is, annoyingly, one of the most accurate things anyone has ever said to me over gas station pizza.
What actually fixes it? Spoiler, not a bigger number. So if the number itself isn't the fix, what is? There's no clean, single hack for this, but a few things do seem to separate wealthy people who feel genuinely secure from wealthy people who feel like Marcus at 3 a.m. The first is defining enough in advance, on paper, before the anxiety is running the meeting. Most people let their target number drift upward automatically as their actual number grows, which guarantees the finish line always stays one step ahead of them. The people who escape that trap sit down while calm and write out, "This is the number, and this is the lifestyle that would mean I've won," and then only revisit it deliberately, not every time the market has a bad week. The second is separating identity from net worth on purpose. If your entire sense of self-worth is wired directly into your portfolio balance, you've built a single point of failure into your own psychology. The market doesn't need to actually ruin you to ruin your sleep. It just needs to dip. The third is learning to tolerate normal volatility instead of avoiding it entirely. People who panic sell at the first small dip, who never take a calculated risk that could fail, often arrive at large wealth having never practiced losing at all. So the first real loss at scale hits them like the end of the world, simply because it's the first time it's ever actually happened to them. None of this is about the money getting bigger. It's about the relationship with the money getting steadier, built the same way physical strength is, under manageable, repeated stress, not by waiting until you're $41 million deep and hoping your nervous system figures it out on its own at 3 a.m. Back to Marcus. Back to Marcus, still lying there, phone glowing in the dark, doing math his brain was never built to do calmly. Here's the thing that should actually change how you think about this. Marcus's fear isn't proof that he's failing at money. It's proof that money was never the thing that was going to make him feel safe in the first place. $41 million can buy an enormous number of things. It cannot buy your nervous system a memo that says the danger has passed. Only you can send that memo. And it turns out that takes a very different kind of work than the work it took to earn the money. Which means the goal was never really to get to some number where the fear finally automatically shuts off, because there isn't one. Marcus is proof there isn't one. The goal is to build the number and build the person who can hold it steady at the same time, on purpose, instead of hoping one eventually fixes the other. So if you're nowhere near $41 million right now, good, that's not a setback. That's exactly the point in the process where this work is cheapest to do. Figure out your enough now. Practice losing small now. Build your identity on something sturdier than a balance you can check from your phone at 3 a.m. Because the money was never going to fix that part. It was only ever going to make the stakes bigger.